Yeah, man. Greetings, Ras Tafari, Hail Emperor the King Selassie the First, the Perfect Balance Empress Menin. This is first man for Rastafari Indigenous Village, recognizing, accepting, promoting Lion Voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Ras
Yes, I.
Tafari.
Greetings. I'm Sister Aisha Diana Conwood, currently the Assistant Commissioner of Agriculture for the U.S. Virgin Islands. Time for the lioness to roar. You know, this is the lion's voice. Lioness, let's roar, lion pour.
And now over the from 2016 to 2019, as we learned to build, got our resources up as an organization, we began construction of the Kwaku Ando Sustainability Institute. And it really was and is a labor of love that I saw the need to bring all the elements of Habesha together from our various programs, from the urban ag or the organic agriculture through Habesha Works, through the urban green jobs program, watershed management and green infrastructure, sustainable seeds working with the youth, the solar technology that we had at Habesha Gardens and the trainings that we've done. We brought, and then the Black to Our Roots, right? Bringing our folks home. We pulled the culmination of all of our programs into an institute that could house all of those because we say, okay, America, we know the future is Africa. We want to make our first physical space, brick and mortar, if you will, on the African continent. And we, set off on a mission to build up the institute to be aligned, to bring both the ancient and the modern, with the round chalets with the thatched roof, to using the earth brick, to using solar, growing organically, using our herbs, harnessing the water. It really is to show how we naturally live and be self-contained, as the I said, a proof of concept that now can be replicated throughout the continent, not only as a way of live, but it's also now a repatriation hub. So now those of I and I who want to return home, we now have a place that we can now come to. Well, like I say, it really, I and I had a portion of youth ankles, at that time at Howard, and give thanks to Ras I really with the vision, to continue to say how now can we connect the students, because what that did was it allowed I and I now to have resources, even from the university, not only financial resources, but also access to rooms, buildings, things that we can now could connect the Rastafari community to. And again, because His Majesty had been at Howard University, not just attended, he actually got an honorary law degree. So the esteem that we were having for the king was well represented. And so give thanks for Musiai for that. I and I just saw the opportunity to gather, through the ERC. We were able to hold programs. We were able to have educational events. We were able to bring in the elders like Irie Lyon and the Brethren from the UK, to be able to present. We provided stipends. We were able to have a presence on campus that showed Rastafari in this light, and also to rally up ones who were interested. And I think through ERC, and really I say the I really took the baton and really took it to the next level of the just match, in the sense of I and I was there holding it, figuring it out, in the sense of those were the early organizing days, prior to Habesha. It's ERC that really gave I and I that structure, and through the Bingi House, now I'm partial because it was really the Bingi House was the main rallying point, you know what I mean? But we used that internal, external organ as an arm of the Bingi House, really, and to where now also collaborate, do things with the Bingi House and have access. And we begin to have a relationship, with Dr. Thomas Battle from the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, the director. Big up Dr. Battle because he supported I and I, with the enlightenment reasoning on Rastafari, where I and I were able to bring out, the Bible that His Majesty had given to the university, and show the importance and the connection of His Majesty, not only to Howard University, also to the fact that he was present in America during the time of the Brown versus Board and advocating on behalf of African people. This was 1954 when His Majesty came. When you really study that year that His Majesty came to America and where he went, Chicago and these places, it shook creation. And for I and I to have been in a place where His Majesty stepped foot, to walk the same ground, I and I wasn't like the elders in 66 that got a chance to see His Majesty. But to say that we could walk the grounds where the king walked, Aya, that's an honor. That gathering changed how the Bingy House even ran from that time. The fire just went up a next level, because we had the elders like Irie Lyon in there. We had, different Ainpos from New York in there that came to the reasoning at Howard University. And then all roads led, to the Bingy House, 10th Street. And that fire ISIS and subsequent reasoning, especially with elders like Irie Lyon, who really came and set a certain order with the Bingy and how we operate and hold the ISIS. It forever changed I and I as youth, because now, if prior to that time, as I really check it, I and I was more passive in the administration of the ISIS. You know what I mean? But no, Irie Lyon said every IMPO have to know the fire key. Every IMPO have to know the creed. You know what I mean? Like all I and I have to be to administrate upon the ISIS, because if not, we doing some, like Catholic thing where you got one priest and he do all the thing. No, all I and I have to know the liberty in its fullness. And the fire that the ancient came with, I give thanks truly to Irie Lyon for blazing that fire. And for I and I as youth coming in, we wanted that, we wanted more fire. We wanted more correction. We love the fire reasoning. You know what I mean? That's the thing. For I and I, that time helped I to be able to reason, one, sharpen the reason, but also be willing to not get in my feelings, like be able to take the heat. You know what I mean? Like if a fire blaze, make it blaze. Truth and right is truth and right. Not be partial just because it's no. When the fire blaze, whoever it touched, because it's a cleanse. I ain't that was cleansing. You in the eyes and you hit, oh, you know what I mean? If you jump, that means you had something in you that needed to cleanse out, non-partial. Yeah. To where we say, yo, if we're gonna do this, now the next step is not only teaching them about Africa, let's see how we can travel to Africa. That was in the summer of 2001. By 2002, that spring break, we had organized a meeting, and I think we stayed with the eye while we was there. I think we stayed with the eye. We organized to meet with 5 African embassies with the goal of what? Bringing youth of African ancestry from America to their countries. So we had Ethiopia, Ghana, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and Kenya. We set meetings up on our spring break, and we went up there and met with these embassies and said, hey, we want to bring you to your country. All of them were, open. None of them had resources. So we said, okay, give thanks. At least we got those connects, came forward, and really had the most links, just through the Ras Tafari community and others. Give thanks to Sister Imara. We had links in Ghana. And so, a year later, myself and my queen were able to, catch a flight to Ghana. This was 2003. We were able to catch a flight to Ghana and link up with Ras Ariel, big up Ras Ariel and Earthseed. And it was then during that journey, 2003 to end of 2003 to 2004, that we brought to fruition and conceptualized the program that will be known as Black to Our Roots. And in the summer of 2004, we took our first group of youth from Atlanta to Ghana for a 2-week journey of self-discovery. And that first set of youth, we had 5 youth that we took. Out of those 5 youth, 4 of those youth were Rastafari youth. And the thing about Black to Our Roots too is what we wanted to show is that it was a practical way for us to connect with the youth. And now it goes beyond the talk, even in the Pan-African community. Because for me, honestly, as I got more into the Pan-African community, I see myself, I love the ISA, as an actionist, I see myself as a solutionary, same way. And I really see it like, yo, we see what's not there. Let's think beyond the box, because honestly, brethren, I ain't gonna lie. I had ones who were like, I thought close brethren who discouraged me in the early days of Black to Our Roots. Like, with our first journey, I had ones who was like, yo, why you doing that? Like, and I didn't overzit in that sense, but I do overzit because even us in the quote unquote conscious community is not so much nowadays, but imagine 20 years ago, Aya, right? Even us in the conscious community that wear African clothes and talk African and talk about Africa, we were really afraid of the continent,
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness, them feel nice. Lion vice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion vice, got to show the people them the life. Lion vice.
Come be a part of history and experience the sharing of wisdom from some of the most brilliant thought leaders in our community. Come see Muda Baruka, Styles P, Nori Muhammad, Lawrence Haja, Dr. Dorothy Holly, Dejaz Mach Kwasi, Deborah Hines, and Midwife Asasia impart their wisdom at Groundless with My Brothers and Sisters, a holistic health conference. A plant-based breakfast and lunch are included. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Them could never conquer the mountains. Thousands of years and counting. Ethiopia rise again unto the world. Now we are announcing. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace. Him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. Well, solar energy that them a see. The whole city powered by the sun's energy. The road them make out of hemp and concrete. Neighborhoods full of fruit trees that taste sweet. The youths put down them guns, them harvest and a reap. The beautiful gardens will line every street. Tired of the bloodshed, them done with the beef. Not even animals for that, them burn out the meat. Where people say Haile Selassie, I see Nile. When they see say him a treat the dirt like a child. Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bansu, aka the Chazmach Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk. Welcome to the Lion Voice Network, and welcome to Lion Talk, where the lions are telling our own story. This is Ras Tafari, independent, non-aligned media, rising. Big up all of the people who have subscribed to Lion Pride. We're growing stronger and stronger every day. Ones are chatting in. Big up yourself. Big up Lion Pride on Patreon, who are strengthening with their economic resources. You see the upgrades to the platform. That's the Lion Pride on Patreon contributions at work. So we're taking this straight to a world-class level family. You know what I mean? So we give thanks. Today we have a very special episode. One of I closest family in creation. This is a joy. They them know him as Bingy Sean. We have been reasoning about the brethren from the beginning of the channel, the building of Zion. There I have seen multiple episodes of the brethren at work. We say it's time for an update of the work. It's time to tap in. A lot of things are happening. World War III is raging. Petrodollar has ended. We see inflation is rising. Babylon is falling. And they're on the attack. Even INI channel right now has gotten a strike before the episode we just did on the vaccine exemption victory that has been won in Jamaica. So if you're not a part of the Patreon, make sure that you're a part. Make sure that we have your email, because we may be shifting from YouTube exclusively, or we may just limit the content we have on YouTube, and the more serious content is gonna be behind the paywall on Patreon, because right now them a police the thing, family. So we have to know that we're at war. That being said, I'm interviewing a warrior. Many battlefield stories I have with this brethren that can't come on a public forum. You have to come to Africa and seat up to get some of these stories, because some of them we don't even tell them in the West how serious the battlefield has been. From Howard University days, I've known this brethren before he had youths. Now he has many youths. A grandfather, in fact. So we coming from far, and it's a joy to see the evolution in terms of Rastafari work on the highest level. Before we bring him on, let me just big up Ramia King Design. I'll be sipping my Iconut water during this interview from Ramia King Design. Big up Ras Lidge, one of the sponsors of the channel. So you see, we're going to be sipping up some nice coconut water. Big up CMOS Life. Ross Woodley sponsor the channel. This is a family affair, and I have family here today. So Lion Pride, please help I to give a mighty welcome to I family. I can't even call him a brethren anymore. Family. Bingy Sean, Ras Myers. Yeah.
Yeah, long time. I had some flash forwards as I mentioned certain things we can't even mention on that side again. We give thanks to be in the land of the living, and His Majesty has blessed us to now come forward as youth elders, as we say, and within this tribe, and to see and learn and build and still be side by side, hailing the King, living up, upholding the Black family, strengthening our community. So big up to the Judge March, as one of probably my most reliable confidant and advisor, just as a one who anytime I have any kind of reasoning, I'm coming to the eye, because it's always been like that. So give thanks for just being there all the time for I on so many levels, from personal, from Habasha, Rastafari, everything, So big up to the eye, man. I want to give the eye flowers. Big up to the Lions Voice Network. I remember the reasonings, and up to now, I'm telling the same thing. We got to tell our own story. So I see the vibes growing from, like I said, from them Iowas till now. So we know it's going to continue to grow, and we love to see the support of the family. So yeah, man, it's a joy. It's a blessing for us to be able to link up. How good and how pleasant it is for I and I to dwell, together in I, Rastafari.
The eye is one of Iman's greatest inspiration, and I always cite the eye because I and the eye always have this reasoning that we should have been recording from the Howard days, or being more intentional. The amount of works, reasonings, events that we've had, that we've planned, that we've executed, and we used to burn camera. We used to burn them things. We just doing the works, and that zeal.
Right.
And now that we have the wisdom of our elder, coming into the eldership, we're realizing how important the documentation is, even for coming generations.
Yes, sir.
And to see the work. So I really give thanks. But I want to jump into the Lion Talk time machine, because the first time we interviewed the Ion on this platform, we were at the airport in Ghana. And we never really got to go into the I story, and the I have one of the most powerful story, because the I is not from Jamaica,
Right.
The I is from deep south, And we know during the transatlantic slave trade, most of I people that came to the American continent came and were in the deep south, and that story within Rastafari, because there are races that are rising out of the deep south, and the I think have a representative story. So I want the I take us to the time machine take us to down in the deep south and tell us where the I was born and the I journey to Rastafari.
Yeah. You know, even the time what the I said too, you know, I heritage and lineage is of what they call the Gullah people.
Mm,
And so the many times you hear the Gullah people or the Geechee people, Gullah Geechee, you hear those equated to like the Maroons
yes.
because you have certain islands on the coast of America like Sapelo, big up my cousin Tina who's down there,
Big
but
up
many of these
Tina.
islands,
Yes.
St. Simons, you know, Jekyll Island, our ancestors rebelled and fled to those islands and had existing African communities that they were living and holding on to the culture. So similar to the Maroons who went into the mountains, the Gullah or the Gullah Geechee, I went off into the islands along the coast and maintain our African culture. And I give thanks to be of that lineage, you know, as the I say, kind of from the beginning. So I really see that as the beginning. I like that was a part of those rebellious Africans that we said we not gonna accept what happens to us, you know. And I personally grew up in a small town called Woodbine, Georgia, in southeast Georgia, again, right on the coast, you know. And you know, as I talk about it, my first instance, I would say, of Black power or of resistance, or if one would call it that, would be my grandfather. You know, I always tell the story. 5 years old, I can remember driving in his pickup truck, and we driving on a road the single road that goes through the town. We driving on that road, and as we driving, the police stop us. So this had to be maybe 1980, 81, right? The police stop us in redneck rural Georgia. And when the police stopped us, it was a young police officer. I was sitting on the passenger side, my grandfather. The police came to the driver's side. And as soon as he stepped up to even address my grandfather immediately started blazing fire, just cussing him and telling him why did he stop him, blah, blah, blah. And that he needed to go into his police truck and leave them alone. And literally, right then, as he said it, and he finished, the police officer turned around, went to his police truck, and we left off. That moment always stands in my mind, even though I didn't overs it then. That was my first time really seeing, you know, a stance against, you know, white supremacy, oppression, et cetera, in the sense of my grandfather said, yo, we were doing nothing wrong. And we were, you know, being harassed. But on top of that, he also showed that I'm standing in my truth. And I'm a man, I'm willing to stand up and live how I live. So from that point on, my grandfather really was a model to you know, I saw he was a businessman. I saw how he made sure he employed people in the community. You know, I give thanks just to see the example that he had as far as how he dealt with, you know, his work ethic and the traditions that he had, you know. And so growing up with that example of my grandfather really was a blessing to me in so many ways, you know. He never was the one who said, hey, he knows all the countries in Africa, or he can't tell you who Kwame Nkrumah is. He can't. What he instilled and what my grandmother and the elders around I instilled was this level of respect, manners. And what the elders would always tell me is that, you know, manners would take you farther than money will. So I got those examples of African liberty from people who couldn't tell you about Africa and wouldn't necessarily even call themselves African. The Overs, they showed it through their actions, and it truly was the village that raised I, you know. Fortunately, during those early days, my connection to, let's say, blackness was I wasn't, you know, taught about blackness in school. I went to a typical public school. The most I would do is, you know, I love sports. So in football, especially, I'm rooting for the black quarterback. Back then, you had Randall Cunningham, Doug Williams. You know what I mean? That was my level of blackness, if you will. Just like I knew I had a pride about being black, but I didn't have that adjacent knowledge. It was
Yes.
me, but the ways around me that I could connect to my blackness, that's what I did, if that makes sense. You always, it wasn't until I went to Florida A&M University, FAMU, and that's where I now was in a space where I was around all black people, around those who were, you know, seeking knowledge, sharing knowledge. And that's where the trajectory changed. You know, that was like 90, let's say 94 is when I went to FAMU. 95 is when things really changed. I had a psychology course, and a professor, Dr. Robinson,
Okay.
a video. She showed a video, and in this video, it had I can't remember the name, but I've seen some clips of it. But it was two people. It was an interviewer, and then there was somebody being interviewed. And the person being interviewed was talking about this place called Ancient Kemet. And I never had heard of Kemet, you know what I mean? And he was explaining how Kemet, people call it Egypt, that it's really black people. Kim comes from chemistry, and all of these pieces. He was going into who Imhotep was, that he's an Ethiopian, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher showed 15 minutes of the video in class. I immediately after class went up to the teacher, and this was the time when they had VHS. I asked her, could I borrow the VHS? Because I wanted to see the episode. So she let me borrow the VHS, and literally that changed my whole trajectory on studying, on everything. When I listened, and that person speaking was Dr. Asa Hilliard, who I end up actually later on being able to study under before he passed in Atlanta. But it was there that led me on now a trajectory of studying. So when I read that book, or when I saw that video, I immediately started gravitating, searching for books, and was reading like a book a week. And around this same time, the next semester, now I learned about this psychology, black psychology. I said, hold on, I'm seeing all the psychology students and the people in psychology, they got African clothes and they move with a certain blackness. So I say, I go over there and go to the department as a student. I'm in like physical therapy or something else. I go over there and say, hold on. I think this is really where I need to be. And so I started taking more classes, taking black psychology classes, taking all these classes, but things from an African-centered perspective. And it was there that I began to meet brothers and sisters, Brother Keto, who I know from Howard. Keto was one of my probably the first brother that I kind of looked up to just on knowledge. First eating vegan, you know what I mean? Talking about Africa, and Sister Kaya. And there was a place in Tallahassee called the Arquette Center at the time, the Denards, who were two professors at FAMU. They used to host programs, events, African dance, or we would go to the African dance. They would host all kind of things they would do in addition to being professors. They had this event one day where they had Dr. Laila Africa as a guest speaker. Used to have Steve Coakley back in the day, you know what I mean? Like all the heavy hitters will come through with them early. That was like 96, 97. And they had Dr. Laila Africa. I never heard nothing. I grew up again in the South. So I grew up, as far as eating, we ate everything from the rooter to the tutor. For those in the South, you know what that mean? The rooter to the tutor. They talking about a pig, right? The pig, the front nose roots, and the tutor is where the waste comes out. So literally, we would say we eat everything from the rooter to the tutor. So I didn't put down anything. We always went to this presentation by Dr. Africa, and it was like 3 hours long. And the way he broke everything down, I called my queen at the time, now my wife Siobhan, after that, and said, "Yo, I'm through. I ain't eating no more flesh, no nothing." We went, cold turkey, as they say. And she did it with me. She agreed to do it the same way. Her being from Guyana, she was already used to eating really on a certain, that's pretty much Itar, and she grew up 7 days, so she knew already that, you know what I mean, the liberty was a part of it.
I'm going to bring the eye forward on our program Lion Love to talk about the love story, because the them have a nice love story. When I do couples, because I'm just talking to sisters, but when I start doing the couples, I'm going to bring the item to talk about the item love story, because it's a serious one. Now I want to get the real, because you're my brother. FAMU is known as a party school. Did I indulge while you were at FAMU? Was the balance there, or was the eye just strictly on the conscious path?
This is what I'll say for me. Fortunately for me, I sold my oats in high school. I sold my oats in high school. I tell my queen all the time. We actually went to the same high school but didn't know each other. And I
Okay.
tell her all the time, it's a good thing I didn't meet you in high school. I met you after high school, where I was more mature.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I sold my oats in high school. When I got to fam, I was, to be
Most
honest, I was
focus.
still trying to just figure myself out. When I first got there, very beautiful sisters,
Yeah.
intelligent. Being in Florida, it was. I came from Atlanta, so Atlanta is not, is also full of beautiful, especially in those times, the early '90s. So we give thanks for that. But I really, once this was my sophomore year that I saw that video.
Yeah.
My freshman year, I used to hang out, play cards, doing the normal. But once I saw that video, seriously, that my trajectory, brethren, I went like on a, not to say I was slacking, I wasn't focused on school. It
Yeah.
steered me on a search. And at that time, interestingly enough, I also vowed, I took a sabbatical from women. It was a brethren you had on the show the other time that reason about that he took a sabbatical.
Yes.
And then,
Yes. Rastamaj. Rastamaj.
yeah,
I
big
mean,
up
I
the
did the
brethren.
same. I did the same thing when I came into my consciousness, and I recommend it for young brethren. You know what I mean? That sabbatical, because it really helps you to kind of
Yes, sir.
cleanse. You know what I mean?
No,
Because a lot
focus.
of time as youths, we're looking at women just as physical.
No.
And when you take that sabbatical, then you really start seeing humanity, in
Yes,
its
sir.
fullness. So, and I say that because I mean I know the eye story already, but
Sir.
a lot of young races and ones who come from areas that don't have races. So I want to humanize I
Yes,
and I.
sir.
Sometimes ones will see the eye as Bingy Sean and think they can
No.
never attain, but
I give you a little secret.
yeah.
I give you a little secret what my high school name was. That's why I
What's it?
say my high school name was Pimp C. That was my high school name, brethren. So I say all that to say, to your point, is
Yeah.
it's the balance, and now even in that, what I would say is that for I challenge that same swag or whatever one want to call it, right? Just for
Mhm.
righteousness. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Because the swag is just a confidence, an influence of being able to, you know what I mean? We use that for righteousness, because even with the sisters, not to make this a lion love vibe, but even with the sisters naturally are attracted to I and I, the light of the majesty within I and I. We
Hmm.
can use that for our own personal gain, or we can use
Yes.
that for the works.
Truly.
So what I learned to do was channel that towards His Majesty work. And that's really because that's the glorification. Don't glorify I, don't. It's the light within I from the Most High. It's not I within myself.
Highly. And that's
You
that's
see?
key, because when you take on Rastafari, the women will come, once you're treading upright. But it's to not abuse that and to use
Yes,
those sistren, because a lot of time they're coming with skills, they're coming with contacts, and the eye has done that very well. Both, I and this brethren, we work with a lot of sistren, because when you're doing works at a high level to execute those works, a lot of time the sistren them are the ones who have the contact, have the links, executing the work. And if you're sleeping with them, then you're destroying those relationships,
brethren.
and you're
Brethren.
leaving that chaos, because feelings, all these things get tangled up. So that's a beautiful thing. Now, talk to I and I about the I chat to Howard University, where I and I connected, and when the I started growing your Congo.
Yes, I know that was so FAMU was really like the sprouting phase, right?
Hmm.
And during those early days at FAM, as we get that African consciousness in general, we started to connect with ones who were citing up Rastafari. And we first hear about Naya Bingi. I was fortunate enough, interestingly enough, there was a lecture, and I can't remember who exactly. John Henry Clark came to do a lecture at FAM, and I think it was the student union that put on that lecture. The opening act for the lecture was Naya Bingi drummers.
Mm.
At the time, I didn't know anything about Naya Bingi. It was my queen who was with me, who was like, "Oh, Naya Bingi." She had heard of it, being from Guyana and knowing certain about. I had never heard of Naya Bingi, right? And I want to say, brethren, for some, I don't know this for sure. I feel like that was Bongo Jack Demaya.
Okay.
Um, I don't know this for sure, but this was like 90, it had to be 97. 96, 97, I feel like it was, I just remember it was some elders on the harp, some sisters holding, you know what I mean? But they came down as a part of. So that was when I first heard, during them times, the same way listening to Sizzler, you know what I mean? And really getting the inspiration in them my junior, senior year at FAM. I really hadn't delved into His Majesty so much. It was really more on reggae, listening to the music, the word sound, and loving the consciousness of the African vibes, And then, as I mentioned, after I finished undergraduate at FAMU, I went on to Howard University. And, this was a mystic that how this whole thing happened, to where I was at Howard and I was in a dorm. And initially I was in a dorm I was in like a 2-room dorm by myself. And one day, like 2 or 3 days on campus, I linked up, saw this brethren. I was like, yo, this brethren live in the same dorm. We saw each other, both having locks, you know what I mean? At this time, I had just started growing my locks, maybe a year or so from FAM. Got started at FAM. And this brethren, had longer locks. I just love how the brethren was moving, and we held each other up. And, after a few times reason, and then the brethren was like, maybe within a strong of me coming, he was like, yo, I got a place over here with no roommate. And I said, I got a place with no roommate. So I was like, yo, let's organize, because we knew that at some time we may get a roommate. They'll fill in the space. So we say, yo, before we get a roommate, let's go ahead and organize to become roommates. Mm-hmm. And we became roommates. And that brethren, Ras Tafari, which the I know from a long time, was instrumental brethren, bigger Ras Tafari, wherever the I is in creation, a big inspiration to I and I used to reason, burn the ancients for hours and hours and just seat up. And it was him that I first went to Nyabingi on 10th Street. Okay. It was the first time I went, after he would go. It was a few times where he would be going and I wouldn't necessarily go with him. I didn't know. Then he was like, yo, I'm going to the Bingi. And he was like, yo, you want to come through? I said, yeah. Came, brethren. And when I came, just it wasn't even like an Isis day. It wasn't like a Sabbath day where it was like a Wednesday meeting, you know what I mean? But the energy in there and the vibe, seeing the elders, seeing everybody in locks, and you know what I mean, burning the incense, and then at the end they seal up with the bingi drum again with a chant, and how the ones militantly just chant up, the psalm and scripture. It touched me on the way to where I say, yo, I'm feeling that connection. And so it was then, same time, after going there a few times, he took me to the brethren place, one of the elder, like a youth elder, I ain't that age now, who was doing works, and I would see all around. He was one of the more vocal ones in the congregation, brethren Ras Ilaka, and he took me around to Ras Ilaka, and we just be reasoning for hours, vibing up, talking about His Majesty, reading scripture. And one day, Ras Ilaka mentioned about His Majesty. He mentioned that, yeah, His Majesty had come to Howard and got a degree. And my ears perked up because I had, this was maybe like I'm 2 months or so in, you know what I mean? He blocked this sound. He was like, yo. And he was like, yeah. So I said, wow. So then I went on a mission, brethren, and started really studying, checking the king. Particularly started at Howard, went to the Spingarn Center, the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, to do more inquiry about His Majesty, who His Majesty is, and make the connections. And from that point of finding out that His Majesty had come to Howard, it really became like a personal, almost like a mandate on I now, that it was no coincidence I came to Howard. I just learned about His Majesty, as a emperor of Ethiopia, getting an honorary degree, as the King of Kings, and Ras Tafari tying in. So that led me on really the search of His Majesty and studying the King. Simultaneously, also tying in from the earlier studies that Kemet was really the child of ancient Ethiopia. Then tying in the scripture that talk about Ethiopia, being that place, the river Gihon, you know what I mean? Where the holy mountain is. So when I started looking at all of these things, I said, hold on, all of the pieces tie in. It ain't just from one angle. All the pieces tie in. Ethiopia, Dinkanish, being the anciency. So that led me to just studying the king, to really seeing, of course, scripture-wise, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. All of these pieces started to meld in at once. And I say, yo, now I see where it's all going. Now I see where I'm supposed to move within this tribe. And it took me to not only now from studying with the purpose. Before, I was just taking the information as a sponge. It was when now I learned of His Majesty that now that information, I knew how to use that information. Prior to that, I was just taking it in. I wasn't really, I wasn't really like doing so much active. I'm just sponging. Once I started to study the king, then was when I read about leadership. When I read about His Majesty taking on the title of the Minister of Education, it took on a personal, mandate for knowing that I come from a lineage of educators. Yeah, I see it, knowing that even prior to coming, to Howard, my focus was on curriculum development, and that's what I did my studies on. So it was like His Majesty was personally showing this is the level to where you must take it. And so I studied the king and studied the king and studied the king, and it just continued to open up more for to see all the pieces, even so far as to now learn that a brother, as the talk about Ras Tafari in the U.S., think about one of my greatest heroes, John C. Robinson, known as the Brown Condor, born in Florida, raised in Mississippi, became the head of the Imperial Ethiopian Air Force for His Majesty as what I call the first volunteer Ethiopian. I have a chance, say we the volunteer Ethiopians fighting for our rights, We're not gonna stop until Babylon Wall come down, you see? So I see John C. Robinson as the first volunteer Ethiopian in real life for His Majesty. And when we study how many black people in America and in the West wanted to go fight for the king, that gave me a whole next level. And then ironically, seeing how it's the fulfillment of all the prophecies that His Majesty come to set up. That I say, yo, this is I way of life. This is the natural way, eating the natural foods, living right, in tune with nature. These are all our African ways. So Rastafari was the encapsulation of all that I had learned, and His Majesty became that embodiment for to now study and to exemplify, and what aspect of His Majesty that resonated with was for to hold that post. And that's really, the post I've been holding since since 97, in 98, when I trotted up, from them times. And I know we had the Enlightenment reasoning on Rastafari in 1999. Big up Ras Iris, Bongo Jack, all the elders, Ras Sydney, all of them inputs from them, Ras Musiai.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna do a panel discussion of the impulse that was at Howard in that time. The Iris just came to as the doing the history. I said I'm doing a panel because I just reconnect with the Rasmusi. I have his link, and there's a couple other brethren that were on campus with us. We gotta do a gift. We gotta do a panel. We gotta do a panel. Yeah, we gotta do a panel. So when did does I remember when we met? I don't remember.
Brethren, but it's so mystic, right? Because it was really like Kilimanjaro Humble Heights. Somehow when I was doing the juices and the smoothie, I don't know even how that five came together. Ayati, Rashion, Ras Baraka, and Brethren, I don't remember how we came together, King, but that was such a power, brethren.
There were a lot of youths in the Bingy House, a lot of college students. That was the heights of Sis Kalanji, Caperton, the culture, music, revolution, Bingy, Naya Bingy, Bobo was strong at that time too. That was Malachi Z. York, was the Nubians. We used to clash the Nubians on campus, what I mean? So it was like a black power explosion at that time that was happening. But I'm trying to remember, the first time I linked, but I know it's in the ISIS and then just over time.
Yeah, it have to be. Yeah. I think it's through IoT though, because remember IoT was doing the baking. He had the
Yes.
baking that he was already doing, and Ibiju was doing the baking too. So
Yes.
it was around them Iowas, and I think just through that. I remember one time I went out to the farm. We went out to Ras Axum farm,
Yes.
and I was moving in them Iowa. So it was really that time we combined. I had the Humber Heights, where we had the little incense and certain thing.
Yeah.
IoT had Kilimanjaro Home Bakery. And then we say, yo, let's bring them together for Kilimanjaro Humber Heights. We had the carrot juice for life, more memory tea, ginkgo biloba, goda cola. We had the yum yum cake. Yeah, I remember the yum yum cake.
Yeah.
And then
Bestseller.
it was
Cassava.
the
The
fried
fried
cassava.
cassava.
Big up Andrew too, non-partial. Yeah, you know what I mean. So
Yes. Yes.
I was there. We learned so much. That was that time from like 98, 90, yes, say end of 98 to 2000, 2001, brethren. That was an incubation period right there, King. That was an incubation period for the work that I is doing now. So I truly give thanks to have been in DC, an international black city, learned so much that helped I to move forward, on the works that we're doing and really prepared I because we in them times we said we was going the works we doing now, we blocked the sound that we will be
Yes.
reasoning with heads of states and officials and intercontinental works. We blocked those sounds and we were preparing ourselves for it.
And now we're on that level. Talk to I about the Ethiopian Rastafari community, the on campus organization, which Ras Mosai was the first president,
sir.
and
Yes, sir.
talk about the involvement, because we have to bring this history,
Brethren.
and immortalize this history, because this is some serious history,
That's right.
HBCU history. Talk to us about ERC.
Well, like I say, it really I had a portion of youth ankles, at that time at Howard, and give thanks to Ras Musi, really with the vision, to continue to say how now can we connect the students, because what that did was it allowed I now to have resources even from the university, not only financial resources but also access to rooms, buildings, things that we can now could connect the Rastafari community to. And again, because His Majesty had been at Howard University, not just attended, he actually got an honorary law degree. So the esteem that we were having for the king was well represented. And so give thanks for Musiai for that. I just saw the opportunity to gather, through the ERC. We were able to hold programs. We were able to have educational events. We were able to bring in the elders like Irie Lyon and the brethren from the UK, to be able to present. We provided stipends. We were able to have a presence on campus that showed Rastafari in this light, and also to rally up ones who were interested. And I think through ERC, and really I say I really took the baton and really took it to the next level of the just match, in the sense of I was there holding it, figuring it out, in the sense of those were the early organizing days, prior to Habasha. It's ERC that really gave I that structure, and through the Bingi House, non-partial, because it was really the Bingi House was the main rallying point, you know what I mean? But we used that internal, external organ as an arm of the Bingi House, really, and to where
Yeah.
now also collaborate, do things with the Bingi House and have access. And we begin to have a relationship, with Dr. Thomas Battle from the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, the director. Big up Dr. Battle, because he supported I, with the enlightenment reasoning on Rastafari, where I were able to bring out, the Bible that His Majesty had given to the university, and show the importance and the connection of His Majesty, not only to Howard University, also to the fact that he was present in America during the time of the Brown versus Board and advocating on behalf of African people. This was 1954 when His Majesty came. When you really study that year that His Majesty came to America and where he went, Chicago and these places, it shook creation. And for I to have been in a place where His Majesty stepped foot to walk the same ground, I wasn't like the elders in 66 that got a chance to see His Majesty. You always, but to say that we could walk the grounds where the king walked, that's an honor. You
Yes,
know what I
I.
mean? For those of I and I who know it. So yo, it was an honor for me to be taking the lead of ERC, and it prepared I and I for what was to come with Habashah and many of the works that I and I would do even going forward, because we started to see the importance of organizing. And I mentioned something earlier about how we would burn the camera and we didn't want these things around. That was when we had to study the king more, because we know the king is the most documented public figure on earth. And it was a reason why, right? Because he knew that ones would try to discredit his work and discredit him. But the footage is there, the information is there, the biographies, the autobiographies is there. It can't be refuted of the greatness of His Majesty. So I and I see, like the I say, and that's why I big up the Lion Voice Network, because I and I have to document this story, Aya. We have to document our own story. So give thanks again, Aya.
Yeah, and I would tell everyone I learned from the I and Ras Musiai, just because I would be like a shadow with these brethren, when they were going to the offices, just learning the process, and coming from Toronto, what I mean, where we never really mobilized like that as black youths, what I mean, we just were on the party vibration. So coming and seeing one so serious about black black people works, the eye was an eye opener. And as the eye said, we were able to do great things. And I don't want the eye to gloss over the Enlightenment reasoning. I think it's the largest Rastafari event up to now that Howard that we ever did. And
Mm.
I worked with the eye on that, and that was one of the greatest Nyabingis that ever took place
Mm.
in Washington
Mm.
D.C.
That
in the
changed
heat.
everything, brethren.
You know what I mean? That was like a
Changed
conversation.
everything.
Yeah, that was like a talk about the Enlightenment reasoning, the whole how it came together.
That change that gathering changed how the Bingy House even ran from that time. The fire just went up a next level, because we had the elders like Irie Lyon in there. We had, different Ainpos from New York in there that came to the reasoning at Howard University. And then all roads led, to the Bingy House, 10th Street. And that fire ISIS and subsequent reasoning, especially
Yeah.
with elders like Irie Lyon, who really came and set a certain order with the being and how we operate and hold the ISIS. It forever changed I and I as youth, because now, prior to that time, as I really check it, I and I was more passive in the administration of the ISIS. You know what I mean? But no, Irie Lyon said every Ainpo have to know the fire key. Every Ainpo have to know the creed. You know what I mean? Like all I and I have to be to administrate upon the Isaac, because if not, we doing some, like Catholic thing where you got one priest and he do all the thing. No, all I and I have to know the liberty in its fullness, and the fire that the ancient came with. I give thanks truly to Irie Lion for blazing that fire, and for I and I as youth coming in, we wanted that. We wanted more fire, we wanted more correction. We love the fire reasoning. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Hmm.
For I and I, that time helped I to be able to reason, one, sharpen the reason, but also be willing to not get in my feelings, like be to take the heat. You know what I mean? Like if a
Hmm.
fire blaze, make it blaze. Truth and right is truth and right. Not be partial just because it's no. When the fire blaze, whoever it touched, because it's a cleanse. I ain't that was cleansing. You in the eyes and
Hmm.
you hit fire. You know what I mean? If you jump, that means you had something in you that needed to cleanse out, non-partial.
Yes,
Don't
I.
talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Uh,
thanks.
and we had representatives from the UK, Ross Joseph,
Yes, I.
Atlanta, Bingy House came up, New York, Bingy House was there, once came in from Jamaica. And we, as you said, we had stipends that we were able um, to give to pay for plane tickets and so forth. Other than the UK, I'm trying to remember who else we brought in with the stipend. Does the I call?
I thought it was Irie. I thought maybe Irie Lyons was in. Was he in? He might have been in New York. I think it was a UK brethren. I think it was the UK brethren that
What?
we
Yeah.
we brought in. But it was ones. I know it's some ones from Trinidad that was there. New York, you know what I mean? Like I say, Atlanta. Yo, it was a official event. You know, the vibes was
It
like I
was
say, well
high. Yeah.
orchestrated,
Yeah.
well ran.
Well
You
high.
know what I
Well
mean?
ran.
Everything was proper. You know what I mean? And we give thanks because that set a certain standard for I on how to do events and how to do programs. You know, because that was really I first like event. You know, like that was really during them Iowas, you know what I mean? And it took a lot of coordination, but we give thanks because it was a perfect event. And like I say, even after that, when ones came to the Bingy house, the reasoning, the vibes, you know, it's how I see heaven on earth within that context. You know, we had a microcosm of that love and unity that we eyes to see through creation, you know, and that irit has been the irit that we always look to replicate and build on whatever we doing worldwide, you know, and that's what I deal with, you know, anything even with Habasha. It's that same iris, you know, it's love and unity full out, you know, family vibe. So we give thanks, Aya. Them times there, we'll never forget them times, Aya. Just even just being sharp in DC, King, like that gave I and I a whole nother level of militancy, being in DC and how I and I used to move well militant and holding the vibes and making sure we was, you know, because we had to. You know, we in the belly, we in the bow. You know, the ice still there. But them times there was a different time
Different
for I
time
and I.
because that was pre-gentrification DC. So, you know, you had the street side of DC. Then you had, you know, the police state because there was always a police state. You know what I mean? I moving around, you know, 5, 6 Ras one time, getting pulled over. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Dealing with, you know, all kind of vibration. You know, dealing with Aishan. So it
Yes,
was a lot at that time, um, and it was very powerful. I want the eye to take us now to the establishment of Habisha.
yes, sir.
Um, the I left DC, you know, after graduation, you know, 2000. We lost a lot of impulse, you know, a lot of ones scattered. I think the Bingy House went down in 2001. You know, that was the last of the Bingy House. Um, I'm iting to do a documentary on the Bingy House too, you know.
Yes, I.
Um, you know, just interview ones and put together a whole
It has to
series of
be. It's a
videos.
powerhouse, Aya.
Yeah, because it was a serious manifestation. I'm sorry. I don't know if we have any footage of inside of the Bingy House. I'm just iting, you know what I
Itrus.
mean?
Just
Or,
Itrus, man.
yeah,
Because
I don't
we
know
was
how
watching the
much
video
iTunes.
camera in them Iowas. Yeah, them time video camera feel it.
Yeah.
Especially in Cincinnati.
Can you imagine trying to bring a video camera in the basement? Yeah, that was a fire time, you know. So that
But we
was
needed that though. We needed that time. We needed that
yeah,
fire there to
yeah,
be where we are now. You know what I
exactly,
mean? Like
exactly. We,
it helped I and I to build up the militancy and the discipline, and really that really was the beginning of Habasha. And even as I say, even though Habasha wasn't formulated, you know, in DC, the roots of Habasha is Kilimanjaro Humble Heights. You know, the roots of Habasha is when I and I was doing the work that we were doing, because, you know, and I got to big up Mama Farika too, because she was an inspiration as well. Because, you know, I used to shadow Mama Farika with the schools. She would go and teach at the schools and do after school programs, the Sojourner Truth program. I can't remember the exact name of, but I would go and shadow Mama Farika and go to the schools with her. And it was really through shadowing Mama Farika and just learning how she moved within the school system and a certain thing. It gave I and I a next level of inspiration on the education side, you know, and how to deal with the vibes, you know, as far as connecting with youth and doing programs and certain things in place. So Mama Farika played a real big part in that before I left DC, that I used to get a chance to shadow her. And now it was when I, you know, went to Atlanta and really just saw, you know, that there was an opportunity because of the blackness and the southern hospitality, if you will. You know, the youth were open. You know what I mean? And Rastafari was fairly new you know, in Atlanta at the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't really, you know, I was listening to the interview that I did with Iras, and Iras was talking about when he first came to Atlanta, Ras Tafari wasn't really present, reggae, and you know, he was mentioning about that how he. So the same way when INAT was there, this was 2000. You know, when INAT came forward to Atlanta and was attending Clark Atlanta University, it was fairly new, and so, but it gave INAT an opportunity because the youth were open, you know, and so we saw this as a chance to connect, you know, the youth to their history and culture. And one thing I always said is that I learned about myself. I began to learn about myself, and I was in my early 20s. I said, I wanted to be where now they don't have to wait till their early 20s. Why not in their teens? Why not earlier, that they begin to learn about themselves and from in an educational setting, not just even, you know, give thanks to our parents, but in educational settings. And so I said, yo, you know, after being at Clark, and one of the classes I had, an educational leadership class, the professor made a good point. He said, we're here at the Atlanta University Center, which houses Clark Atlanta University, Spelman College, Morehouse College, Morris Brown College, and the Interdenominational Theological Center. All of those are part of the AUC. It's a hub of Black learning, of Black excellence. Right across the street was a place called University Homes, which was the nation's second oldest public housing projects in America. The first oldest was one called Techwood Homes. That was the white public housing by Georgia Tech. They had the Black public housing by the University Center, the AUC at the time, right? But he said, out of all of these universities and centers of higher learning here, there's no pipeline from the youth from University Homes projects into the AUC. And he was saying, why is that? Right? And so when he said that, it sparked something in my mind. I said, yo, it shouldn't be that way. So what we decided to do, myself and big up Ras Tafari again, the brethren who again at Howard, who connected me with the Bingy House, he was from Atlanta, returned to Atlanta, and I returned and we connected. He was at Clark. I was doing graduate work at Clark, and we decided that, yo, we wanted to start up a program. And so ended up doing, mystically enough, through the research that I had done at Howard, which was developing a curriculum called SEED curriculum. We spelled it CEAD, Cultural Enrichment and Academic Development. We developed a curriculum. That curriculum was built off of the studies we did at FAMU. At FAMU, we had a chance to research what they call the CB schools, the Council of Independent Black Institutions. So in the 70s, these group of Black people started in Chicago, Hakeem Mahabudi, which I know, they started the Council of Independent Black Institutions and had these independent Black schools all over the country. And they had similar curriculum, but they were focused on Pan-African education, independent education. So as a undergraduate student at FAMU, I was able to research their curriculum development. And when I got to Howard, I developed a curriculum based on what I had learned in research, and we called it CEAD. So when we started our program at the University Center, we called it Plant a Seed, which was, again, cultural enrichment, academic development, and connecting the youth to their history and culture. And when we started it, myself and Ras Tafari, we didn't really know, we didn't have a structure, we didn't know lesson plan. We just say, yo, we wanted to rally the youth up. And I'll just give a quick story because this show really the faith in His Majesty is that we had planned to do the program. It was a 7 Saturday program where we would take the youth for 4 hours and go to the library and do different things. So we recruited like 2 or 3 weeks prior. We went around the project, talked to parents, got numbers, signed up, and invited them. And, you know, all the parents was like, yeah, I'm going to let my youth come, boom, boom, boom. That Saturday we get there. Supposed to start at 12. You know, we get there early, have some nice little veggie food for them, everything set. We get there 11, set up at the library, you know, waiting for them, 11:30, everything prepared. 12 come. So we say, all right, we expecting the youth to come in. 12:30, we don't get no youth. 1 o'clock, no youth come in. 1:30, we like, yo, get no youth. So we say, all right, you know what? Back to the drawing board type of vibe. We're going to do it again. We packed up everything. During that storm, we went through the neighborhood again, reaffirmed with the parents, hey, you know, we having this program. We want your youth to come out. It's free. We're going to have snack. Same thing. We get there 11, 12, 12:31. Nobody shows up. So I told Ras Tafari, I'm like, yo, we're just going to pack up, man. And as we packing up, I leave out to go pull the vehicle around, and I see this youth on a bicycle, just a random youth. I don't even think I had seen this youth before. I saw him on a bicycle, and I was like, yo, we got a program inside for you, teaching you about your culture. Boom, boom, boom. He was like, okay, for real? I was like, yeah. I said, he was like, okay, I want to come inside. Well, I said, look, you got to go ask your parents first. Let them know where you are, make sure it's okay. So he was on his bike, left with his bike. I went back upstairs, and I was like, I just met a youth. He said that he was going to ask his parents. I said, I don't know if he coming forward or not, but I said, let's give him a few minutes. So within like 15, 20 minutes, went forward outside. And as I'm going outside again, I see the youth pull up. Not only did he pull up with him, it's his sister and his little brother that also pull up. And that actually was our first program, Aya. We did the program with those youth, the three. The next Saturday, they told their other friends, they added another 5 or 6. Then by the 4th or 5th Saturday of doing it, we had like 25 youth, and we would literally just ride through the neighborhood. I had a pickup truck back then, an old truck, ride through the neighborhood. The youth then would get on the back of the truck, and we would drive them to the library. And we did that program, Aya, that year, just through the love, you know. We took them to the Shrine of the Black Madonna. They had this Black Holocaust Museum. Give thanks to Ras Tafari. His family had a place with a pool. So the last day we did like a pool party. And what was so powerful at the end of the program, one of the mothers of the youth who was the first youth, it was D'Angelo and DeAndre. D'Angelo was the one. His mom, you know, we went to drop them off because we would always take the youth back to their house. We dropped them off, and his mom, she said she wanted to talk to me. So she came out and she just expressed her gratitude in the program, you know what I mean? And how much she appreciated, loved it. And she was like, yo, you know, I see what you're doing. I recognize, and, you know, even though we don't have no money to give, I just want you to know that, you know, you made an impact on my youth's life. And that really propelled and sparked to where we say, yo, if we're going to do this now, the next step is not only teaching them about Africa, let's see how we can travel to Africa. That was in the summer of 2001. By 2002, that spring break, we had organized a meeting, and I think we stayed with the eye while we was there. I think we stayed with the eye. We organized to meet with 5 African embassies with the goal of what? Bringing youth of African ancestry from America to their countries. So we had Ethiopia, Ghana, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and Kenya. We set meetings up on our spring break, and we went up there and met with these embassies and said, hey, we want to bring youth to your country. All of them were, you know, open. None of them had resources. So we said, okay, give thanks. At least we got those connects, came forward, and really had the most links, you know, just through the Ras Tafari community and others. Give thanks to Sister Imara. We had links in Ghana. And so, you know, a year later, myself and my queen were able to, you know, catch a flight to Ghana. This was 2003. We were able to catch a flight to Ghana and link up with Ras Ariel, big up Ras Ariel and Ursi. And it was then during that journey, 2003 to end of 2003 to 2004, that we brought to fruition and conceptualized the program that will be known as Black to Our Roots. And in the summer of 2004, we took our first group of youth from Atlanta to Ghana for a 2-week journey of self-discovery. And that first set of youth, we had 5 youth that we took. Out of those 5 youth, 4 of those youth were Ras Tafari youth. And our goal, even initially, was to make sure as many of the Ras Tafari community and their youth be a part of the Black to Our Roots program. So big up Niger, big up Sabir, big up, you know, big up.
And we have to mention that Habesha was created as a Pan-African organization, so it wasn't created as a Rastafari only organization, although it was inspired by His Majesty the King. Suppose
Yes.
that's in our bylaws, you know what I mean? We made sure that we put that in the bylaws.
You have to put that in there. Yes,
You know, but it's a Pan-African organization because we're holding on to that Pan-African part of His Majesty, who is the father of Africa.
There you go.
And so it can't be just restricted to Rastafari.
No.
However, many Rastafari youth have benefited and been able to be a part of Habesha. Talk about Black to Our Roots, which, you know, legendary program now, immortalized in an award-winning documentary. I have to big up Ras Tafari.
Big up Ras Tafari. Yeah.
Award-winning documentary, Black to Our Roots. It's, you know, I still meet people who have seen the video who, you know, have no connection to, you know, I, but just, you know, it was, you know, the heights of it is that it became a bootleg, you know, back in the bootleg DVD era.
Right.
You know, Black to Our Roots became a bootleg DVD that was being sold, you know, on street corners and barber shops throughout the country, you know, on that underground railroad of Black conscious DVDs. Those who know, went through that era, know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
The DVD era. Talk about, you know, the legacy of Black to Our Roots.
And even as I mentioned that back then, we actually took that as a compliment, right? That I was getting bootleg, like, you know, you know, that was an honor in them days to be on the, you know, that circuit. You know what I mean? It was really an honor that one, and to that point, you know, big up Mama Alicia, because she used to tell me they used to show Black to Our Roots like as a film when they had programs and stuff. You know what I mean? Like people were using that documentary as like an inspirational for their youths and stuff. Like even up to now, ones can get that. So if you go online and do full Black to Our Roots film on I think it's Vimeo or one of those, you can actually pull up the film. You know what I mean? So we encourage ones. It's timeless in a lot of ways. That film really is timeless. And Black to Our Roots really, again, tying in from us saying, hey, we have to have a practical way of connecting Africa to the youth, not just through books or even through film. We wanted them to touch, taste, feel Africa because we felt it was important for us. And so, you know, the goal was really to acclimate the youth through trainings, through research, you know what I mean? Field trips, you know, the I was one of the early Black to Our Roots 2005, which was our second journey, you know what I mean? The I came, and that's really, it was that journey where we had before the film, we had that promo video that Sean did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That was a powerful little clip itself, though. That even
that trip we took Nana Faraika, that was a legendary chard, you know. You know, with Nana Faraika.
That was a blessing, man. That was a blessing. So Black to Our Roots. And you know, the thing about Black to Our Roots too is what we wanted to show is that it was a practical way for us to connect with the youth, and now it goes beyond the talk, even in the Pan-African community. Because for me, honestly, as I got more into the Pan-African community, I see myself, I love the I say the I as an actionist, you know. I see myself as a solutionary, same way. And I really see it like, yo, we see what's not there. Let's think beyond the box. You know, because honestly, brethren, I ain't gonna lie. I had ones who were like, I thought close brethren who discouraged me in the early days of Black to Our Roots. Like, with our first journey, I had ones who was like, yo, why you doing that? Like, and I didn't overzit in that sense, but I do overzit because even us in the quote unquote conscious community is not so much nowadays, but imagine 20 years ago, right? Even us in the conscious community that wear African clothes and talk African and talk about Africa, we were really afraid of the continent, you know.
It's true.
The brain dirtying that had happened, the propaganda, the narrative that had been spoken about Africa. We were consciously and subconsciously afraid of Africa. And we had the same myths that had been propelled to us through the media. And so the people who I thought would be, some of the people I thought would be my biggest supporters, they were skeptical, and I didn't blame them. I said, yo, we'll continue to do this and they'll come around. And sure enough, many of those who were skeptical in the beginning actually have traveled with us, you know, over the years. So we give thanks, but it was really a labor of love. I had like the level of fundraising we used to do, the movie nights, you know, give thanks to the I in DC, bringing in the DC branch of Black to Our Roots, you know what I mean? And big up to Mama Isla, you know what I mean? For the work that she did from them early days and supporting. Big up to Haile Garima, you know what I mean, for supporting Habesha, letting us do it. I remember we had a film screening there. We used to always have events, the Sankofa Roots Fest.
Yeah.
It's so many ones. What Black to Our Roots did, I felt too, it gave people an opportunity to think outside and think bigger. Like it inspired ones, whether it's travel to Africa or whatever, what you put your mind to. Because even the stories, big up Sylvia, big up Kweku in the film, you know what I mean? And how that film, the amount of people who were inspired by that film to fulfill their goals, to overcome obstacles, like that's an inspirational journey. And I think that's really helped propel Habesha on a level, not just more eyes seeing it, but also I would say that even we see what's happening now with Africa. I really think non-partial, the work that Habesha has done and that Aina have done over the past 20 years has helped to propel and bring to fruition what we see happening right now on the continent, you know what I mean, and in Ghana. And just to be quite honest, Rastafari has always been at the forefront of African consciousness, repatriation, you know what I mean? And that's fact. So we get thanks that Black to our roots, COVID was the only thing that stopped it. In the sense of travel, what we still do now is we still consult with organizations and entities that want to bring youth. And now, unfortunately, with us having Kazi is really a culmination of Black to our roots, Habesha Works, all of our programs. We now have an institute that culminates. So we host groups, we host youth groups, at Kazi to have that experience. And Black to our roots really was that initial connection to the continent that really opened up all the relationships that we have now. Big up Mr. Mousy, and Liati Wote and the whole Liati Wote family, because it's through Black to our roots and through Mr. Mousy being our first chef, and then our second chef being Ras Titi and Ras Ni. Just big up everybody on this side who has made it possible for us to now say we have an institute here in Ghana. You don't forget about them early days,
And we're gonna get to Kazi, but one of the unique things about the Black to Our Roots program, we had almost a full Rastafari staff in Ghana. In terms of the staff that we had employed that was handling from the chef to the translator guide. Rasni, would do lessons with the youth, tree lessons. So we had. The ones that we had trod with us, it was really a Rastafari experience. So when the youth were with us in Ghana, they're also getting the Rasta, and that reception that we are getting moving through. The youths are feeling that as well, because they're amongst their experience in Africa was a little bit different. I know the time is very tight. So
I'll give it thanks.
So I want we're gonna talk. This is just this version is a regular on the platform. So we're just giving a little update. We're gonna touch on the crown jewel, which is the Kweku Ando Sustainability Institute. Give us and as they are talking, I'm gonna have the visuals flowing. Give us the whole fullness on the Kweku Ando Sustainability Institute. We love to call it a proof of concept, but give us the whole vibration behind it and the aspect, all of that fullness.
Well, again, I give thanks to the Kwasi, just again over the years being a sounding board, being the one that I can reason with, and inspiration. Same way. We inspired by the eye. You know what I mean, and look up to the eye, same way. So, Kazi really it is a culmination. I remember telling one of my professors who now is an ancestor, Dr. Kobe K.K. Cambone, professor at FAMU. I told him in 1996, I remember I sat in his office and I told him, I said, one day I'm a be in Africa living and, building schools and contributing to the community. I told him that. And I never forget that. You know what I mean? I never forget that visualization. I visualized it then. I saw it in 96. And I can really say, it was 2016 to when it kind of, which would have been 20 years later, that the manifestation of it began. After traveling, to Ghana, upwards of 20 times doing that between 2003 and 2016, having relationships with communities, Liate Wote, which is the community that Kazi's in, always had a special place from the first time we traveled there in 2004 with the group of youth that we had. The first chef we had, Mr. Mousy, was from that town, but the town just had a certain energy about it. It's in the Volta region, which is a real rutical region. It's a rural area. It's 4 hours or so, east of Accra, right on the Togo border. And it just had a special place, in their heart. The people lived so close to nature. They had the love in their heart, and just rutical people, farmers, In addition to that, the natural surroundings were so beautiful, within Ras Tafari, we love, the chant as mountains round about Ethiopia. So the true and living eye is round about I and I, And this place here, literally, is surrounded by mountain ranges. And one of those mountains is Ghana's tallest mountain, called Afaja. And in addition to that, within the mountain range, there's the second tallest waterfall, Tagbo or Togbe Falls, is also there. And, we would always have this particular space and place as the last journey that we take when we bring the youth. We would always go climb the mountain and go to the falls, and always had a reception and drumming from the community. And it just was love that always surrounded. And really, after going for so many times, Mr. Mousy and others in the community say, hey, you're going and coming all the time. When are you going to come and build? When are you going to come and stay? And, they planted that seed of welcoming us. And actually, Mr. Mousy had actually wrote up a blueprint of a roundhouse from early days, just like gave me a sketch of like, hey, I'm thinking of, you know what I mean? We didn't have the financial resources at the time. That probably was like 12, 13. We didn't have the financial resources at that time, but that seed was planted there. And so, it wasn't until some years later, once we now as an organization begin to build up. And, I even tell you just a quick story of what kind of sparked, not all of it, but definitely a piece of it. I was taking my second set of youth, two youth to school one day, Island Kamal, and two of their cousins were in the vehicle with us. I'm taking them to school, and they having a discussion about Africa and talking about just being there, what's going on in Africa. And the cousin was like, yeah, I don't want to go to Africa, blah blah blah. And Island Kamal were defending Africa, and they was like, it's not what you think, my dad go there, boom boom boom. And they were really defending it. And as they defended it, I'm driving. And I already was kind of on the fence at the time, personally, like, yo, is it time to go? I knew it was time on a personal level, but also just with the works. But when I heard them defending it, what came to my mind was, yo, that's a window that I want to make sure these youth have an opportunity to connect, because they're still in that window where they haven't been tainted, if you will, by what the West propaganda has told us about Africa. And that was like April 15th. I went home that day, told my queen, yo, we moving, you know what I mean? And within, we already, again, we're kind of thinking and meditating on it, but I was on the fence, just being real. I was trying to figure what's the finance thing gonna look like, how, you know what I mean? But that, when the IRA hit me, I knew it was then. And immediately when I told my queen, and really when I said it in my iris, on the way driving them, things just started moving. All the pieces came into play. And so within, 6 months, we were in Ghana, you know what I mean? Living, started off first building the HQ, you know what I mean? Learning how to build from scratch, and, having to being literally a construction zone for 6 months. My family at the time, it was 4 of us, my queen, no hot water. No running water, definitely no hot water, no electricity. Had to cook every day just because we in the mountains and things spoil quick. We did that so that I could learn what it takes to build on a larger scale. And now from 2016 to 2019, as we learned to build, got our, resources up as an organization, we began construction of the Kwaku Ando Sustainability Institute. And it really was and is a labor of love that I saw the need to bring all the elements of Habesha together from our various programs, from the urban ag or the organic agriculture through Habesha Works, through the urban green jobs program, watershed management and green infrastructure, sustainable seeds, working with the youth, the solar technology that we had at Habesha Gardens and the trainings that we've done. we brought, and then the Black to Our Roots, right? Bringing our folks home. We pulled the culmination of all of our programs into an institute that could house all of those, because we say, okay, America, we know the future is Africa. We want to make our first physical space, brick and mortar, if you will, on the African continent. And we, set off on a mission to build up the institute to be aligned, to bring both the ancient and the modern, with the round chalets with the thatched roof, to using the earth brick, to using solar, growing organically, using our herbs, harnessing the water. It really is to show how we naturally live and be self-contained, as the I said, a proof of concept that now can be replicated throughout the continent, not only as a way of live, but it's also now a repatriation hub. So now those of I and I who want to return home, we now have a place that we can now come to. Big up Sister Imara. She used to always say, we need a launching space, in the West, and we need a landing space, on the continent. So we created a landing space for I and I, using the educational trainings as the conduit. So it's not just a place you just come in and seat up and hold a vibe. No, you're getting trained, you're getting acclimated, because there's works to be done. I and I not at the stage where we can now just sit and burn our spliff and hold a vibe. We can still, we have time for the chalice and this, but we also now have to what? It's the work. It's works and more works. When we check His Majesty, he worked 20 hours a day, 3 hours of sleep and 1 hour of prayer. So we get our prayer and meditation in the same way, but really it's the work that we're about, King. So, I and I used to always talk about the welcoming committee, being on the welcoming committee. This is what I and I, the manifestation of that. So again, big up the Bingy House. Big up, the ones from them early days. Kazi is really a representation of the learning that we had, the culmination of everything that we've been doing. And as the I say, we infuse His Majesty is the foundation of anything that I and I do, within Habasha. Same way, all the principles have to align to what how I and I live. We don't go against that. So I'm grateful. We've seen that Kazi has become now a beacon to where ones from all over the world are coming to learn, to share, to build. And we really just getting started with Kazi. It's just in its infancy stages. And now what we've seen is ones that wanted to learn that they can replicate this thing in other places throughout the continent, even in the Caribbean, that we can have these launching pads and we can have these landing sites. So, I'm encouraging the family who hear this, go to the website, www.kaziinstitute, KASINSTITUTE.org, that you can learn more about Kazi, become involved, connect, and this is just a replicate. This is what we want to see replicated, and everywhere on the continent, we can now have Kazis, but they won't necessarily be called Kazi. Whatever that person or entity in those areas are who we want to revere and big up, because Kazi is based on Dr. Kweku Ando, who's born here in Ghana. He's an ethnobotanist. You know what I mean? He was I teacher, and many, if you know Moringa and you're in the West, or particularly in America, he introduced Moringa, almost 40 years ago to America. So we've honored him in the namesake and just continued on the works of connecting with indigenous sustainability, because some people would tell us that being green and being eco-friendly is somehow not an African trait, but it in and of itself is embedded in who we are as our culture. So that's why we see the need for Kazi to reclaim our ancient indigenous knowledge and to be able to bring our people home.
And it's a training institute, and it's centered on the realization that there has to be a healing process.
Ras Tafari.
So we're very particular in terms of not everybody can just go to Kazi. It's not a tourist site. It's really a healing center. It's a return, through a structured program of healing. So there's a process, an application process for groups.
Yes, sir.
It's very
everything on the website.
It's very structured. So I just want to make that clear. I just want to give thanks for the I know that I have meetings all day today.
All right. Yes,
this was a good touch base.
Yeah.
I want we have to do this more regular.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that we can just keep the ones posted on the developments, because ones are inspired, ones are watching. I've connected with youths in Trinidad now, in Jamaica. I'm trying to really be intentional in connecting with youths
Rastafari.
and bringing them on the platform. And we have to be what we wanted to see when we were that age. You know what I mean? That's really what it is right now. Because when we were young, with all of that zeal, you know what I mean? Big up all of the brethren who were our age at that time, but they weren't doing stuff on the continent. They weren't, you know what I mean?
Right.
That
Right.
model wasn't there for whatever reason. We're not playing a blame game. We're not,
No.
saying anything, but we now have that responsibility to really show them and see, okay, there is some, if I focus, if I have faith, I can manifest the work on this
Rastafari.
level, and they can take it to even higher than we were able to take it. So I really just again give thanks. The I is one of the frontline workers. We didn't talk about the residential side. The next time that I come on, we want to talk about the Amakari group, the
Yes, sir.
residential
Yes, sir.
work, and really dive deep into that. Right now we're dealing with land development, and that's
True.
something as Rastafari we don't really talk about the reintegration, the land development piece, because that's a key. When you move to Africa, the government doesn't come in and start
No.
doing things for the eye. You know what I mean? You have to petition the government, get the permit. You basically do it yourself. So that's a whole
Nation
other
building.
yeah, nation building. And this brother is on the front line in terms of, not only negotiating the deals and reasoning with the Asians, but we have footage where he's digging the rocks out the road. You know what I mean? So the guy's not doing from Ruda to Tuda anymore, but the guy's doing the head cook and buckle washer.
Rastafari. Give thanks,
Yeah.
I.
So
Yeah.
the eye still that principle of doing
Yes, I.
from seat to
True.
table,
True. True.
through the whole process, the I still live and embody that
Yes, I.
principle. So just give us some final word sound in terms of for this installment, what the I want the global Rastafari family to what what one should be meditating on, what the brethren and sistren who are watching this right now, where do their iris need to be, according to what the eye has lived and what the eye is living.
Rastafari. Well, it's appropriate that I think it was just first day I was watching it. I had a piece on the five components for repatriation, and talking about is it still a zeal there? And so, I see more than ever and more right now that it really is a time for us to revitalize and re-energize, our look to the continent. Because, in the early days, it was really Rastafari was the main one chanting repatriation. Now that has really gone, for lack of a better word, mainstream. I'm seeing the diaspora, everybody coming right now to Ghana, brethren, to turn up. Even if, and I tell ones this, I don't care what reason you come to Africa, if it's to party, to whatever it is. When you get here, you can't unsee what you see. You can't unfeel what you feel. You can't. Just reach here. Whatever reason it is, reach. Let it touch the ground, and your perspective of life, your perspective of what you see here and how you can now be a part of it, whether that means you're living here, whether that means you're investing here, whether that means you're connected to ones who are living and investing here. You may not be in the time and space to be able to do it. Make that lifeline, make that connection. So regardless, we saw COVID was a real thing, right? That to me, that's still only minor what's going to happen on so many levels. And I would say this: I was here during all of COVID. I didn't, from 2020 until 2023 of June. I didn't leave Ghana. So the whole time that COVID was going on, I was here, and we had a chance to witness. My youth saw it. Yeah, youth was here for kind of the later end. You know what I mean? And family was here for some time, but we saw that Ghana and Africa in general weathered COVID in so many ways. Made me think of that movie 2012. If anyone ever saw that movie, how the end of the movie with all the flood and everything, the only place that's still standing is Africa. I see these things as real life. So this is where we're prepared, and I told my queen, honestly, when they shut down the borders here in Ghana, March 12th, 2020, I told my queen, I said, I'm prepared if I have to never leave this place again. And I was talking even Ghana, not just African. Like I was okay with that. Borders open back up. I have traveled. I'm traveling since. At the same time, though, at that time, I knew that I was in a place and space that I could live the rest of my life. So I just encourage the family, connect to Africa in some kind of way. Of course, first spiritually and otherwise. Now make a tangible connection, and try to reach on the African continent to see for yourself. Because that myth that they told us, that lie that they told us is crumbling. And we have an opportunity to unify in a way like never before. I mentioned that the brethren who was elders in who were I age years ago. I think we stand on their shoulders. So maybe they weren't in a position, they had to go through a different challenge. You know what I mean? Just being able to deal with the police brutality and the discrimination. They afforded I opportunities. So we carry them with us. You know what I mean? We stand on their shoulders. Big up, Ras Stone, you know what I mean? And them other Ainpas who, they did what they had to do to make sure we had a bingy house. You know what I mean? Bridget behind the scenes was covering most of the bills. The reality, you know what I mean? Our little contribution wasn't covering the bills, Bridget. Them Bridget was making sure the bingy house and certain things. So without them Ainpas, we wouldn't have had the reasonings, the inspiration to now get us to the over. So I'm always mindful to big up those who came before and know that, like you say, we're here where we are to create opportunities for that next generation. So the next generation, continue to connect, continue to learn, continue to study His Majesty. You know what I mean? Because that's really, in all the things, has guided me and given me the courage. His Majesty say faith, courage, and a just cause. And those three attributes I live by, Aya, and it's guiding me from this time. So again, big up the Aya, big up Mama Shireen, big up Yah, big up Tafari, big up, the whole family, you know what I mean? Continued blessings to the Aya, continued blessings to the Lion Voice Network. I'm watching, all the time as much as I can. I've been on the binge. You know how people binge watch these shows, Bridget? I've been binge watching the Lion's Voice, Aya. I'm just going through I was on the Ghana repatriation playlist. I'm just going through the playlist, Aya. I'm binge watching, King. So truly, I give thanks, Aya. It's a blessing and an honor to know the Aya, man, and to see the vision manifest from that Iowa to this Iowa. So I know when it get into the millions and the hundreds of millions of viewers and the worldwide thing, we already know, Aya. We can say, that's I key brethren. So, much respect to the Aya, Haile Selassie guide and keep the Aya,
Yes, blessing. And the next time the Eye forward, we're going to talk about the Eye as a citizen of Ghana right now too. You know what I mean? We just scratch the surface. You know what I mean? As you say, you've seen the brethren a lot. If you look at that Ghana playlist, you'll see the brethren working. You know what I mean? Building, developing. So check out the Ghana playlist. We'll put a link in the description. And we're just getting started. As the brethren say, Kazi is just evolving. The works are just really maturing, ripening. We're going to have it all here captured for the global Rastafari family. Works are happening, family. Be of good cheer, weep not. The time has come for us to rally. Why? Because the time has come for the lions and the lionesses to tell our own story. And this is the Lion Voice. Aye.
Selassie.
Isis, I give thanks and Isis. Lion Voice. Them could never conquer the mountains. Thousands of years and counting. Ethiopia rise again unto the world. Now we are announcing. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace. Him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. Well, solar energy that them a see. The whole city powered by the sun's energy. The road them
make out of hemp and concrete. Neighborhoods full of fruit trees that taste sweet. The youths put down them guns, them harvest and a reap. The beautiful gardens will line every street. Tired of the bloodshed, them done with the beef. Not even animals for dead, them burn out the meat. Where people say Haile Selassie, I see Nile. When they see say him a treat the dirt like a child. Peace on earth from the banks of the Nile. That's why we giving thanks in style. See say Babylon a weapon, them a stockpile. Babylon a wicked, kill them brother and smile. Lion, Babylon a reptile. Them a plant for shed blood, we got plans for the soil. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Ras Tafari crown as the Prince of Peace. Him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. No more gullies, proper sanitation. Proper toilets with proper filtration. Clean water for the youths them fi use. Our sons and daughters safe, no more child abuse. Africa arise, read it in the news. On the day when Rastafari ready, wicked have to move. 3D printing alongside hem shoes. Herb get legalized, hard drugs them get refused. Well, people used to say they bring him man senile. True himself he tried it with man, woman and child. Him say peace on earth from the banks of the Nile. That's why we giving thanks in style. She say Babylon a weapon, them a stockpile. Babylon a wicked, kill them brother and smile. Lion, Babylon a reptile. Them a plans for shed blood, we have plans for the soil. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the beast. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace. Him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. Babylon them got a plan for boots war. Without them meditation, well them not go reach far.